It's 11 o'clock on a Thursday. That means it's time for the SMITE Pro League. I'm Tom Battinger. That's going to be Taco. And today we've got two pretty interesting matches. I think we've got teams lined up that are kind of equal in skill. And I think that we certainly got a number of players that are ready to perhaps retake the battlefield.
And speaking of retaking the battlefield, emilitoooooo will be rejoining us in the SMITE Pro League. And I gotta say, there's a lot of people that have really been anticipating his debut since he rejoined this eUnited roster.
It's a big deal. eUnited, certainly a team strong in their own right? When you look at what eUnited has been able to do, they've got a lot going on for them as far as their different roster spots are concerned. I've really enjoyed what's come out of that mid lane, specifically with BigManTingz. We got a glimpse of it last year. But they're going to go up against the Pittsburgh Knights. So for Emil to come in here, they've got some of the strongest competition right in front of them. These guys on Pittsburgh Knights were the fan favorite coming into the league. And although they haven't seen the success that Dignitas has, I think they've absolutely performed.
It's a fairly flavorful matchup, though, for emilitoooooo because a lot of the Pittsburgh Knights members are players that he's not only familiar with, but also even partially teamed with for a little bit, adapting and emilZy. I mean, these are play styles that emilitoooooo will at least be a little bit or have an easier time recognizing, so that could help him kind of just, getting back into the swing of things.
And of course, before Season 6, the league was split between North America and Europe, and Emil has played against the likes of Deathwalker, Zyrhoes, and Vote for years and years. So he certainly knows how these guys are going to approach the game, and he's certainly watched the games as well. He's been playing in the minor league, so he's not exactly cold. But these guys on Pittsburgh Knights, like you said, look at Deathwalker. I think that he's been the creative force behind the team, but we haven't seen that real side of DW. He's been a little bit more traditional alongside Vote, who also has been kind of traditional, bringing the Oolers and what we expect to see.
Either way, emilitoooooo coming back now is going to make things a little bit switched up for Vote, because Vote, he might have been having to do preparations or maybe even just looking for, innovative ways to try and get the upper hand over Vedium. But
sure,
since Vedium actively chose to step down from this eUnited squad so that emilitoooooo could come into the, into the team, I think that it does kind of force Vote, I think, into having to be at least a little bit more hesitant in that duo lane initially. Not to say that he's going to play the entire set, from the passive stance, but
right.
You definitely don't want to jump the gun too soon, because there's no telling, really. No one's really seen emilitoooooo play in quite some time outside of, scrims and ranked, possibly.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting look here. Pittsburgh Knights have been pretty successful throughout the league. Not number one, as I said, but they've been strong. And I think eUnited is a team that has some of what could kind of go up against them. When you're looking at what Pittsburgh Knights has been bringing, I mentioned that Deathwalker has been one of the driving forces. And it's inevitable that Zyrhoes is going to be one of the big voices in those communications as well. So he's a big part of what makes Pittsburgh Knights Pittsburgh Knights. And we got a chance to talk to him a little bit earlier. So why don't we see what is on the mind of Zyrhoes before the PK game?
I think I kind of lost my ways in a bit, the way I play and how I want to play and the gods I want to play. I'm still I'll try to figure it out. It's I guess that because in every other season back in Dignitas I had okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and at this point of the game, I can be the carry for this team. I don't think I've found that yet, so I'm still looking for that. So that's probably my biggest goal, to just find how I want to play and how I can have the most impact on my team. We've been learning a lot, but I think the best thing is I feel when we lose to a team, when we lost to Rival and Dignitas, I feel we're the team. I feel we're kind of giving them the win rather than they're doing really great stuff. So I feel if we can just step up our game, obviously I'm not happy, but I mean our two losses is against two great teams right now, Dignitas and Rivals. So I mean I think we can beat them both, and I think we all know that. But I mean I'm still it's not the end of the world. Thing is that we have not found a way that we want to play together, or how we want to play together, and how we want to draft together, and that kind of stuff yet. So I feel whenever we get that sorted, it's going to be a lot better. But I don't mind it taking a bit time, because we're experimenting a lot, trying different things. But once we really do find what fits us best, I think we're going to be unstoppable. Yeah, first week when we were against SK and SSG, we started two people dual lane. We were not even aware of the meta. We were the support should cover for the invade, for the enemy support if he's trying to go for a speed. So we had trouble, like I remember against SK, I think it was in Nirma. It was like invading, it was giving us a lot of trouble level 1, and like we didn't really punish it at all. I think Adapting killed them a few times, but like they still probably got out ahead in the early game, every game. Obviously you live with all the players you're playing with every day. It's like, say we have a scrim session, it goes good or bad, like you can always discuss it after, you know. It's different, like while we were back home and everyone was like playing from their own home, not living together, it'd be like after a game, like people would just leave and like that kind of stuff. But now like, I could talk a lot more SMITE now, you know. We want to be the best. We should be the best, I think, if you look at the players. But as I said earlier, we still experiment a lot, like with how we play. But like I think as soon as we find our way, when we hit our peak, I don't think anyone can beat us.
A real good look into the minds of what's going on for Pittsburgh Knights and Zyrhoes, specifically mid lane for that team. I think he was honestly surprisingly real and just like, look, man, we should be better, but not too upset with the losses that they've accrued because those are some of the stronger teams around.
It comes as no surprise to me, really, that Zyrhoes and Pittsburgh Knights as a whole kind of upholds these very high standards for themselves. And I think realistically speaking, it is completely rational for them to feel that way because of the fact that this is a 5-man all-star kind of roster. I think public perception was, right this time around when it comes to a team of like a powerhouse possibility. But I do think that Pittsburgh Knights have definitely struggled with kind of understanding and familiarizing themselves with the meta a bit. But that's kind of always been a struggle that I think adapting EmilZy when they were, on that energy roster. This is kind of something that they've always struggled with in a sense, just jumping or finding the initial meta early on, but it's that development over time. And now that we're kind of, nearing that past halfway mark, I think Pittsburgh Knights have definitely had a lot more time to just understand what might work for them better. Not necessarily what works for the other teams, but just what works for them.
I think that's fair, and that's why I really liked this team when put together. A lot of people were just looking at the star power, the individual prowess of the players. But like you said, adapting in squad have kind of really struggled to find some of that meta. And then you look at Zyrhoes and Deathwalker, who have been a little bit more creative, and then you look at players like EmilZy, who is a little bit more traditional. Excuse me. And as we talk about traditional, we've got to look at one of the stronger players in the league historically, and one of the stronger hunters, and he's back. So let's just talk to Emil. It's John Finch standing by.
And I am here with the man himself, emilitoooooo, now the current hunter for eUnited, replacing Vedium. Again, my name is Finch. And Emil, the first thing I want to ask you is, you just got here with the team on Monday, right? How are you guys like meshing as a team? What's it been like being with them throughout this week? And how ready do you guys feel here for this match?
We're all pretty much idiots, so we mesh pretty well together. So it's like an instant match, and yeah.
Well, it's been a while, man, since we had you here playing with us. Really, last time you played would have been like at Worlds, right? So what's it like getting sort of back into the groove? How comfortable do you feel ready to hop in and play at an elite level against such a good team?
Honestly, at Worlds, Vote kinda destroyed me, so I'm ready to get some revenge now today.
Well, Vote's not the only one that you might be looking, to maybe settle a score with. Adapting's over there, so is EmilZy, like a lot of the former teammates. Does any of that kind of factor in at all, wanting to be able to come in and beat those guys right away?
They're peanuts, so it's going to be easy with them.
All right, well, who are you looking for on your team to step up alongside you to really give these Knights some trouble here in this set?
I honestly have no clue. I have no faith.
No faith? You're going to get it done all on your own here, basically, in this one? Yeah. Okay, well, then anyone on that side then that you guys have maybe prepped in particular to try and take down, maybe like anywhere you want to focus in particular, or are you guys just confident you'll be able to grab it?
Once again, they're peanuts.
Well, you heard it from us over here. They're peanuts over there on the side of the Knights, and eUnited are confident. Again, I know everyone's looking forward to seeing you go out there and play. How many times are you gonna get the solo in the hunter role for us?
I'll probably get shafted, to be honest, but we'll take the win.
Should still be able to get the win, though, hopefully. Again, that's emilitoooooo for us here, the hunter for eUnited. We'll get it back over to the guys on the desk.
Classic Emil returning to the league and still exactly the same dude he always was. Love it.
All jokes aside, though, I think that we're all pretty aware of the fact that these teams especially have a lot of respect for one another with the players, because they are all friends at the end of the day outside of the competitive environment, but they're also all, completely ready to try and destroy the other.
Yeah, the vibe here is interesting because you watched, you heard Zyrhoes talk about, like, we just talk more SMITE now, and everybody's, I don't want to say, they're just more invested because it's all in. And so what happens is it's very cutthroat, it's very competitive, but kind of real recognize real, and you'll see like a great play and you'll be like, man, I hate that that's not me, but like, all right, that was dope.
I mean, emilitoooooo just finished giving Vote daps for what happened at DreamHack, and
exactly.
I'm not going to disagree with him. I think that Vote handled himself incredibly well throughout DreamHack, but that's not to say that emilitoooooo couldn't very well find his own revenge today.
That's the thing, and when we look at what eUnited brings to the table as far as their team is concerned, I think there's a lot of interesting things that work out for Emil, specifically that he works out when he's able to kind of show up in the late game, and I think that's going to befit what this team really brings.
This is going to be a very methodical matchup between these two teams, because I know it's all, laughs and smiles right before the game actually starts,
Sure.
but these are two teams that I think are very much just going to be looking to play for the objectives and the team fights, not really looking for the early game pressure advantages, but trying to just hold their own. I think a big thing about teams that love prioritizing team fights is that you have to be able to stalemate at the very least throughout that laning phase, because if you forfeit even the slightest bit of a lead, it can be kind of tough to bring things back. But then again, Adapting does kind of have his own thoughts on the current state of things. I think a lot of the players from Pittsburgh Knights would probably even agree that it does feel like one team could ultimately, make or break a game.
Yeah, one team fight absolutely could. Not just these two guys. I was talking to SK Gaming with respects to Esports Weekly, and Neil Moss said the same thing. So everybody kind of thinking in that world. But Benji, Ice, BigManTingz, Chronos, the guys that are going to surround Emil on his return to the Pro League. I think the biggest thing here is to look at what Chronos and emilitoooooo are going to be doing in that duo lane, whether if Chronos is actually going to be in the duo lane or if Emil will be left alone. So that'll be a big deal.
I think it might be best for eUnited to look for ways to try and let emilitoooooo get a little bit of that solo farm. Chronos might be looking for the rotations a little bit more often, but no more second guessing at least what these teams are going to run. Really looking forward to this picks and bans breakdown, because there is a lot I think that could be shared as far as picks are concerned between these two teams.
Well, the Merlin's going to be taken off the table, and I need to see an Achilles gone. It's when you're looking at these two solo laners and even the junglers, to be honest with you, Achilles has been too dominant, too strong, especially when you look at the god pools of these two teams.
I don't disagree that Achilles has been an incredibly dominating pick so far in competitive play, but eUnited might instead look to take rid of the Bellona. Pittsburgh Knights actually doing a solid for eUnited, because they don't seem to really be all that interested in trying to have Deathwalker run the Achilles, so they'll just choose to ban it, not give it as an option for eUnited.
Well, it's funny, if you ask me right now, two of the premier solo laners are Achilles and Bellona, and if you ask me who the best Achilles and Bellonas are, I might just say, well, Achilles and Benji work out real well, and Bellona and Deathwalker have been together since White on Rice. So I think I got to give that to this ban phase. And yeah, I'd love to see eUnited ban out the Bellona. And if that's the case, Pittsburgh Knights then walks into a perhaps different direction assassin-wise.
There is a possibility, I think, for the Xbalanque to kind of be toyed with as a first pick possibility. Still has that stun available on the Darkest Knights currently. And
For now,
yes. But the blind is still incredibly impactful. Freya, even as a possibility for Adapting or Zyrhoes. I know Adapting's been doing a lot of Freya jungle, kind of just messing around in ranked games, but sometimes that does have a tendency to trickle over into the competitive side of things.
I love me some Freya jungle. I think that her early game kind of allows her to clear the camps, and that mid game works out well against certain junglers. If you're looking at some of those mid game monsters, then you're probably in a different pick. But if your job is to just kind of like keep the Arachne at bay and then win late game, well, then that works out. Pittsburgh Knights going to select Freya. Not certain it's going to adapting, but we'll see.
It's a fairly flexible pick, but it does leave Benji open for Bellona, and either Achilles or Bellona, it's still so aggressive, and I love that eUnited is doubling down into the pressure with this Naja. And because it's so ambiguous where the Freya is headed, the Naja, I think, also provides that little bit of versatility where you're not necessarily guaranteed to get this in the jungle or in the support role, but it still poses a heavy threat to Freya.
I'd love to see the Naja in the jungle. You know, it's funny. I almost wrote off Bellona as the go-to ban here. But Xbalanque was the ban, so Bellona makes the way to eUnited, and with the discussion of Freya jungle that we were just having, and Freya in general kind of having that lull in the mid-game, that's where Naja kind of steps in. And so I love this selection from eUnited. The perfect response, Bellona with the disarm, Naja with the Naja. It's great.
A disarm should definitely be huge here, but not only that, I think eUnited were kind of forced into taking the Bellona because with Achilles being banned, Bellona is undoubtedly the next aggressive support you could possibly, or warrior, excuse me, that you could possibly have for Benji. And you also don't want to let Deathwalker get Bellona. I mean, the guy, I believe, still has his 100% Bellona win-loss, at least for the Pittsburgh Knights record intact. Could be wrong on that, but as far as my memory recalls, Deathwalker has been running that solo lane with the aggressive in-hand gods like Bellona.
Well, I saw the Jormungandr selection, and I immediately thought that that was going to be Deathwalker's answer to Bellona, and he would just fight fire with fire, so to speak, and be aggressive himself. But now we see the Osiris selection. It was very interesting, because Osiris is a character that really gets hurt by the disarm. So now I'm thinking, well, we were talking all this jungle Freya. Are we talking jungle Osiris right now?
I don't think we're going to see a jungle Osiris. I feel like the Osiris is a lot more likely to be for Deathwalker than what it is going to be for adapting. I don't think Osiris is going to be able to provide that same level of pressure, especially if this is going to be a Jormungandr mid lane. Zyrhoes and adapting could possibly struggle with just trying to return poke damage.
Oh my goodness, I forgot that. Well, not that I forgot, because how can you forget, but I forgot that Zyrhoes played that Yorm mid. Everything is messed up now in my brain.
Well, at least you can get it right back on track. No real surprises to see eUnited picking up that Chronos. I'm not going to guarantee that that is for EmilZy by any means, but the fact that eUnited can threaten Pittsburgh Knights with the possibility of it being Emil on that Chronos ADC, it kind of leads me to think that Pittsburgh Knights, if that Freya isn't intended for vote, then they're going to need to find some kind of late-game hunter that can respond to the damage burst potential that Chronos will have if this game goes late.
Well, let me ask you. Let me make you Coach Taco. Do you immediately give Freya to somebody else and pick a late-game hunter?
No.
Or do you make him, or do you make vote play Freya?
I think it's still a little bit too early on to tell, because the interesting part about these drafts for Pittsburgh Knights is that they leave themselves kind of open to being able to make those last-minute changes pending on what eUnited will draft in that fourth pick position.
Sure.
I think it's still fairly likely that this Freya could be intended for adapting in the jungle, but it's just as likely that she could wind up in the hands of Vote. I think that right now Pittsburgh Knights are really just trying to at least I think that they need to solidify something that has a little bit more peel potential, or just something with a lot heavier crowd control, because currently they've got damage, they've got burst, but they don't really have the lockdown.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Right now I'm really enjoying what eUnited's composition brings. I think the Bellona Naja Chronos combination is fantastic in solitaire, and then when you look across the way at Freya, Yorm, Osiris, I like it there too.
I'm thinking of Fafnir maybe for eUnited, because there's already a decent amount of auto attack based gods on the side of eUnited, and we've been seeing a lot of prevalence for these Fafnir compositions in competitive play because it's so good at bursting down those really tankier objectives like the Enhanced Fire Giant.
And if I'm Pittsburgh Knights, I'm banning Fafnir here, which they do because Kalis is also the Fafnir guy. So yeah, everything lines up there for eUnited to want Fafnir. And with the Fafnir ban, they go elsewhere. They'll look towards the mid lane. Raijin locked in, confirms that Chronos, all but confirms that Chronos will be in the hands of EmilZy. So the man who won a world championship on Chronos will play it in his Season 6 debut. I'm pretty excited. I think that's that is what you ask for. That is how you draw this up. That's what you write, and I'm down to watch.
Hachiman could be a strong option here for Vote. A lot of survivability with that mounted archery, decent wave clear as well, and poke potential off of the Heavenly Banner. I also like the fact that those long-range shots could help out Vote pretty heavily in dealing with Bellona especially.
I want to see Rom.
Rom can be tough because Astral Barrage can buy you some time, but eUnited has so much punish for Rom when he comes back down onto the ground. That might be tough for Vote to just live throughout the duration of a team fight. I think eUnited so far have solidified themselves a pretty well-rounded composition in terms of their power spikes hitting. You have power spikes for the early, mid, and late game. Raijin going to bring you that early game. Bellona is going to carry that early into the mid, and Chronos, of course, once he gets online in that mid to late game, it could be pretty tough for Pittsburgh Knights to stop that.
Different direction. Freya will go to the hands of Vote as Pele's locked in. An interesting look. I wonder how Pele will do. And so the reason I said Rom was that eUnited have a lot of getaway ability, if you will. Definitely a lot of characters that can sort of start a team fight and then leave with a sliver of HP. Rom can chase him down. Well, not necessarily chase him down, shoot him from the sky. Pele can literally chase them down. So the Freya will stick around in the hands of the carry, and then we'll see Pele, the gun down, run down character, in the jungle. Terra locked in means that it's probably going to be support Terra. Your mid, we're going to see it again. You know, it worked out. I implore you to watch this set. It's going to be a lot of fun, but this one is going to be interesting. Emilito, his SPL Season 6 debut. Let's get into the game right about now.
Thanks so much, Analyst Desk. Yeah, the casters are ready. Myself and Aggro will be joining you for this one. Well, we've got 9 players in this set that have played in the World Championship before.
Wow, you're right. I got who's the one?
It's not hard. It's not that difficult overall. But BigManTingz, even though he's the exception to the rule here, I think he's someone that's been growing through his consistency through the mid lane.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kind of talk around the league is how well he's played in the mid lane. If you saw Hazer's most recent power rankings for players, he had him up at number 3, I think, and it was pretty high. Man, so
what are people doing power rankings for? Why, who would ever believe those, right?
Hey, man, sometimes power rankings are fun, you know? It's a little...
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't know anything about that. We need another Hindu Man power rankings. You know what? We should get another Hindu Man power rankings going, man. Maybe it'll involve Zyrhoes in the mid lane on Jormungandr because he has been playing this pick.
No, that could be the bottom. Like, if I'm doing a power ranking right now, I don't believe in this pick, Ryan.
I mean,
I'm not a believer.
A little bit. Well, it didn't win the set. That was against Dig.
But when did it do well? Was 40+ minutes.
Yes, very late.
If I'm going to pick a mid laner, I'd rather them do something in the first 40 minutes and not have to rely on that, you know, past that to do something.
Sure, but at the same time, with the rest of the draft that the Knights have gone for here in this game, they've got a lot of early game fight potential.
That's true.
Osiris, Pele are both phenomenal in the early stages. You've got EmilZy who can affect the fight and make your team fight look better than it is in the early game. I don't mind it here. I think the jury's still out for me on how good this pick is.
Callus going to start over in the duo lane. Meanwhile, where is the young lad for Pittsburgh Knights? EmilZy, what are you up to? He's on the right-hand side, helping out Deathwalker here on the blue buff, trying to get that before iceicebaby makes the rotation over. Speed buff's already taken. They're under the belts for now. And the duo lane with Callus starting here, is this because Chronos Freya matchup in terms of push power?
Yeah, I think that they know that they can get an opportunity to get pressure here for ML. And again, how much has ML played with this type of meta so far, where they're left alone and you don't really know who's going to have the pressure all the time and when the junglers are going to come over. Maybe giving him a more traditional start, something he's a little bit more used to, is something that'll help him get acclimated and ready to go.
We mentioned about the amount of World Championships that these guys have played in overall, but if you think about it, none of one has really been on the same roster. And that's where it gets interesting, because you've got the likes of Callus and Emilito together. Those two used to be going at it in those lanes consistently, and now they're on the same team together.
I know. It's so much fun to watch. And now Vote actually has to be pretty careful here, because Emilito and Callus all over him. That whoop was pretty solid, but ended up needing it and had to use a purification beads as well, just in case. And I love this from eUnited now. Zone him out. No reason to let him step up and clear the wave. ML can just stand on the other side of the wave, and a stop time basically guarantees a kill from here.
And both the Hunters, or should I say mages in the Hunter role today, both going with the Hunter's Blessing, as we do see our first gank of the game, iceicebaby the rotation. But Vote with a lovely whoop has slowed this down. And after the fact, the CC chain is just not even available, but the last bit of CC from Callus, he doesn't miss his.
No, that's the support going, all right, fellas, I'll take this one underneath my belt. You guys both miss your stuns. How about mine? And ML actually had started backing up. I thought they might end up dropping it.
I actually thought they were going to drop that as well. I just give it up at the end of the day. But they've got to rely on the fact that everyone calls to support the role that you don't necessarily need mechanics. But they're always the ones that seem to lab the CC.
Well, they're used to it. That's their whole job, Hindu. If you're not landing CC as a support, what are you doing for me? So Kala sets it up. But again, that's just Vote being really, really far forward. And then kind of not accepting that he's getting zoned from that position. Iceice did use his blink to get in position. But I wonder if Vote should have just backed up and gone to back harpies at that point. I mean, it feels really bad to be giving up a full wave of XP, but he just can't do anything about that.
EmilZy now rotates to the dual lane to join his compatriot over here, Vote, and see if he can even things up a little bit. You did mention the blink on iceicebaby as well, whereas adapting, going for the beads here, something definitely tells me, looking at the composition, that it's kind of forced into beads with the amount of CC that eUnited have on the table.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I'm still a bit surprised that adapting doesn't go for blink. I mean, Pele's so good at dictating engagements on her terms because she has the movement to get wherever she needs to be, and then great burst potential off blink that usually I would expect that. I mean, it does make you incredibly vulnerable to Naja Sash and a Naja Ultimate, but still, I think that adapting maybe is realizing that his mobility that makes it so maybe it could have meant that he got away with blink, but it also means he doesn't necessarily need the blink because he can get where he needs to be in the team fights just by way of Magma Rush and Volcanic Lightning.
I was going to say, with his composition the team has designed here, it's very a late-game focused comp. But then when I look at eUnited, it's along the same path. Both teams really have kind of drafted towards the mid-late game stages.
Yes, but I think both teams are pretty good at team fighting. I'd say eUnited a little bit better at just controlling half of a team fight. There's not as much giant AoE that's going to hit a whole team. It's more, I'm going to Naja ult the tank while Benji's going to dive the backline, and BigManTingz and emilitoooooo are going to guaranteed kill this frontliner that iceicebaby's setting up, and Kalas is there to protect. And that's kind of the big thing. I think that Benji's positioning in these team fights is going to be really, really critical because there might not be that much dive going alongside him. It depends on how Iceice wants to play it. If he's been to the Sino school of Naja, where I just ult tanks all day and set up for my carries, then I think Benji could be a bit isolated. But we've seen a lot of other Naja players play a little bit more traditional assassin and try and blink on backliners, so it's kind of up to Ice.
Mid laners so far, BigManTingz already has the Book of Thoth completed and already working on those stacks. Zyrhoes, meanwhile, hasn't based just yet, but no real surprise with the amount of lack of mana you really have to use to clear the wave as a Jormungandr as emilZy looks for a bit of pressure onto BigManTingz. No real panic, just a quick dash away.
No, but that's excellent poke because BigManTingz backs and doesn't pick up a health pot on his return, so now he has to go back to base if he wants to stick around and go back to full HP, but you don't really have that option.
He can't really go at this point. I mean, you get poked a little bit, you're like, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to eat that and try and resustain in between the waves, right? With just being out of combat.
Exactly, but the problem with that most of the time is that, especially against a character like Jormungandr, who's very, very good at poking, that's his #1 sort of big option in the early to mid game is how well he pokes with that Venomous Haze, as Iceice spending some time in the solo lane.
Yeah, not the easiest target in the world to take down is an Osiris. Has his ultimate still available, but so does Benji. Deathwalker will use his defensively, but Benji won't follow the Eagles rally, which is something that you can see in that matchup if whoever gets pressure.
Exactly, it's a time-tested matchup between Bellona and Osiris. And interesting that Deathwalker actually goes for Glad Shield. He's adapting now, looking for Ice.
Well, with Ice not having his ultimate available, this makes it easy work for adapting to pick up the pieces. Great rotation from adapting. That's classic counter ganking.
Yep, perfect. And he has to use a Purification Beads because of the Sash, but that's still an absolute win for adapting, and that's just classic matchup knowledge. As soon as Naja doesn't have ult, vulnerable.
Zyrhoes getting aggressed on straight after the fact, though, has to use his ultimate and does so early before emilitoooooo can get any bonus damage off. One of the weaknesses of Jormungandr definitely is the passive that can be good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, not being able to get Naja ulted is great. It's a phenomenal pick against Naja for that reason. But anytime you would have gotten knocked up or vortexed or anything like that, displaced is the right word, then you're going to take 10% more damage from all sources, and it really does add up very, very quickly. Now, there's not a lot of those on eUnited. It's really just Kalas's dash that I'm really worried about if I'm Zyrhoes. But that means that if I don't have Purification Beads and I get dashed by this Ganesh, I'm almost certainly dead. I mean, not only am I stunned for a long time, I'm locked in place. but then I take 10% more damage and I'm slowed on the back end. That's a lot.
Hunters in the dual lane, or should I say, I'm going to keep saying Hunters even though they're not, and we all know it. But the mages in the dual lane so far both have their Magi's boots online. Looks like lifesteal build coming out from emilitoooooo. We're expecting Bancrofts from both, potentially?
Yeah, I don't necessarily expect it from Vote. The ring build has been kind of the way to go, and I'm actually kind of surprised by this pen boots start for Vote. I wonder if he's trying to match the mobility right away of emilitoooooo, that he feels like he can't necessarily get away from him if he goes for Hasten Katana right off the bat. But Barracuda is the first one that I noticed really doing it consistently, and I've become a really, really big fan of that build for Freya. You just, off the whoop, you start chasing them down with your 2-1, and you're fast and they're slow, and you've got no real way to get away from them. I would think I would have liked that build much more here for Vote.
Well, we are seeing a ring coming into play from Vote eventually. After the fact, we'll see which one it ends up being towards the end. More than likely Demonic Grip we expect here? Or is it...
No, I'd expect Hasten first.
Hasten
If
first.
he's going to go for Hasten at all, then I'd expect Hasten here.
After boots, you know? It's like you're doubling down on movement speed more than anything. But then,
little
speaking
bit.
about movement speed, that's where the focus seems to be again at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of people really liking the movement speed builds right now, particularly in ranked. I think less so in the competitive scene. But movement speed is just such a valuable stat. It just keeps getting better. You end up being really, really fast and really hard to lock down and put yourself in better fighting positions. So I'd expect a hastened here from Vote because, like I said, against hunters or mage hunters like Chronos that don't have leaps, you whoop them, and how do they get away from you at that point? It's very, very hard to deal with.
Benji on the right side, getting a bit cheeky, doing that proxy wave farm, keeping the pressure going, forcing Adapting to sit on this right-hand side until Deathwalker gets back to lane with the teleport. Blue buff now pulled. You can see there's a 3-man grouping from both sides.
Benji tried to steal it away with a Scourge, but didn't end up snagging that away. I like Deathwalker's choice here to go Gladiator Shield. I think that so many people just go, oh, Osiris has a good auto attack chain for Berserkers, so that's what I'm buying.
Yeah.
But against Bellona in particular, she's going to disarm you. And so during that period of time, she's going to be healing, double healing, because of her Berserkers and the healing from Scourge. And you can't get any healing off or damage. With Gladiator Shield, you can get healing and some damage off during that time, and then your auto attacks will still be good when it comes down to it. I think that Glad Shield is kind of a matchup-dependent thing for Osiris, and I like Deathwalker's choice here.
One thing about Osiris, he's spammy. I feel like you do spam those abilities quite a lot, so as long as you're connecting, you're going to get the sustain. He's one of the only ones in the solo lane that you could make the argument for both shields, but then you're losing stuff elsewhere.
I think Nike you could make the argument too. She's got a cleave on her
I
first
would
2
not
autos.
Gladiator Shield on her.
You can hit it. You get AoEs. I mean, here are the 2 things you want for Glad Shield. It's AoE and spam ability. She doesn't have the spam ability that Osiris has, but she does have great AoE.
Well, here's a man fight, and emilitoooooo was saying that Vote got the better of him at Worlds, and in that laning matchup just there, he won the trade too. emilitoooooo forced to use his ultimate defensively, but in response, to be fair, Vote did use his beats.
Deathwalker trying to go aggressive here onto Benji. Benji might have to ult away, but I don't think so. Yeah, he's okay from this position. Yeah, just kind of trying to bluff at that point and leave Adapting's options open because now the left side looks very appealing to gank. emilitoooooo has no ultimate. Maybe if Benji also had no ultimate, Ice doesn't know where Adapting's going to go, and that opens up the gank on the left-hand side. But Benji, a bit too seasoned to fall for that bait.
No, he'll just fall back, although lose some lane pressure without having a teleport available for him. I was interested to see what Deathwalker chooses to do after winning that little trade, but there's nothing in the jungle to really invade, so it's just going to be a quick trip back to base or just pick up his blue.
I wonder where Deathwalker's going to go with this build. I'd imagine magic defense is what he needs, and Benji doesn't feel quite as threatened because it's your mid. So Adapting found him.
Just got caught. He was trying to Thunder Crash away. He wasn't allowed to by Adapting. Now he's taking on the trade with iceicebaby, and now with emilZy in the background too. The chase is on for iceice. Benji with the Eagles rally though will slow things down as Adapting. Using most of his abilities, he had to fall back, but a lovely pick in the mid lane.
Yeah, I don't love that positioning from BigManTingz, but he's trying to step up and be a little bit cheeky on the flank, try and catch Zyrhoes and maybe blow him up on the rotation outside of left side mid Harpies. And Adapting just kind of walks at him. And that's something that Pele does really, really well, is just walks at you. And you really have to respect her damage in those moments, because if you wait around, try and box it out, and then decide, oh, I got too low, I have to dash away, well, that happens. You just get Volcanic Lightning and insta-kill.
So one thing as well, Talaria boots. We talk about it quite a bit, but Talaria's had so many changes over time. Now the fact that he's just got flat better movement speed than any other set of boots, it can come as a surprise when the mobility of this character coming towards you is even quicker than you'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, no leap in the game is going to outrun a Talaria boots Volcanic Lightning from Pele. It just will not happen. I mean, Adapting could have potentially just magma rushed at him if he went with the enhanced version, and really try to chase him down, but you needed the damage as well. You didn't want to let BigManTingz get that Taiko drums off. But it really does. I mean, the mobility is pretty absurd with when you have Talaria and Pele kit at your disposal.
And you did mention about the Osiris build for Deathwalker here. As you said, you expect magical because I guess both dual lanes have a lot of magical damage. We don't have a traditional hunter here, which is going to make a bit of an impact throughout the game, not just in terms of builds, but I guess in terms of how Sieging's going to go.
Yes, I think both teams could struggle, though Chronos far, far better at killing towers than Freya. So actually, I don't expect eUnited to struggle too much, because he's got that. I mean, you just use Accelerate, get all that magical damage built into your auto attacks, and all of a sudden you hit towers and phoenixes harder than just about anybody.
emilZy and Zyrhoes grouping on this right, trying to contest those right and harpies. Won't get the real window to do so with just the two of them. But going back to the Chronos and the build so far, Warlock Staff.
Yeah, I mean, emilitoooooo's played since like Season 2. I mean, he's definitely played where Warlock Staff is not the meta, but you know what? I think that there's something to be said about someone who hasn't been inundated with what's going on in the scrim culture and that kind of stuff, and trying something new. I really like it if he's going to be left alone for the rest of the laning phase. But when you're left alone in the laning phase, like hunters have been, why not go for a really slow stacking, eventual power item like Warlock Staff? I think it makes a lot of sense.
I understand too.
I haven't really understood the Bloodforge rushes and the Odysseus bow rushes and all this kind of stuff by hunters because they're alone. So what are you worried about? But this makes much more sense to me. We're alone. Let me farm, and I'll show up even stronger than you expect whenever the team fighting does eventually come.
I do think if that became meta, we will see more ganks towards that sort of lane. Blue buff on the right-hand side, though, engaged upon, and looks like it was stolen away by emilZy. Nicely done there as Deathwalker looks to pick it up. Trading out with Benji at the moment. Tell a lie, Benji secured it. There you go, there's another one for Reddit.
Yeah, that was, well, no, Ice was, he got it. They'll find something, Graham. It's not even worth worrying about.
You're right. You're right in the grand scheme of things. Zyrhoes level 12 now, still not been back to base. Neither has BigManTingz just yet, but he's just off the mark on level 12. Second relic, more likely beads.
Yes,
For
I think
Zyrhoes,
you
yeah.
need beads for the sash. Maybe you could try something a bit spookier, like sprint. Yeah, would be good against the Ganesha ultimate.
I will
Though
say,
Deathwalker already has one.
on the whole sprint heavenly agility thing, I'm really surprised we've not seen hunters go back to it again.
Really?
Yeah. I am a bit shocked that we've not seen the sprint starts coming out of hunters for the 1v1 matchups. I just think the cojones of the hunters these days has kind of dropped in level, in my opinion. Because the old times would have been straight up sprint, upgrade it, and then fight in the dual lane 1v1.
Yeah, but that's because everyone was trying to emulate the Zapman of old.
And I'm
they were
hoping
all
Zapman is listening to this, and maybe later on this week we'll see
like,
him do it.
Yo, I could just sprint at.
He's like, yo, Hindu's onto something there.
The
like,
problem is you have to invest 500 gold. If you could
Sure.
if you could get that 60-second cooldown like it used to be,
That's fair.
then sure. If you could, or what was it, 30 seconds? I mean, it was super short. I mean, and it was 900 gold, but it was such a short cooldown. That was a lot more appealing. This is a long cooldown. You need to spend 500 gold to get the Fatalis effect.
but still
Zap's going to do it in a ranked game
still
now.
a guaranteed
but
kill.
Yeah, still a guaranteed
Still a guaranteed
kill.
kill, especially if you get left in the 1v1s. Bancroft's talent online for emilitoooooo as well now after starting off with that tiny trinket earlier. He does go back to reinvest. And votes build exactly where you expected it to.
Yeah, the ring build. This is going to be a Telkines next. I think this is the right way to go. I don't even know that you need boots necessarily with this build because of how much extra movement speed you get from the rings, but it's certainly not a big problem.
Adapting, visiting iceicebaby on the right side one more time. Blinked in that time after getting his second relic online. Looking to keep the pressure on this right-hand side. And Deathwalker continuing to keep Benji pinned on this right.
Seems like Pittsburgh Knights have really tried to invade Benji's blue an awful lot. And may have gotten it for themselves that time around, but it really hasn't set Benji that far behind. Sure, he's down a bit. And Deathwalker's been able to bully him out of this lane pretty effectively, but not effectively enough to really make it be like, oh, Benji isn't going to be able to do anything in this game now. It's been basically what you'd expect out of Osiris Bellona. One gets a slight lead, but the other is fairly close.
It does feel like that's what PK's plan has been, but wait a second. Vote forced to beads away from the stun out of emilitoooooo as iceicebaby rotated in and did find the sash, but Vote still staying aggressive and happy to trade out, still alone. Support was on its way, and already eUnited like, no, we don't like this anymore.
Man, we were talking about movement speed earlier. Ice just very thankful for his purchase of the Shield of Regrowth. This is the Cherio special. He loved picking this up a couple years ago. it's pretty strong. It's really hard to get away from.
Vote uses the ultimate to try and get some extra damage on Emilito. Maybe force out the rewind as the rotation was coming through from Adapton and EmilZy, but it won't be enough for the time being. For now, Emilito still safe in this lane.
It's going to be hard to kill him with just Valkyrie's Discretion when he's got that much HP. He's done stacking Warlocks, and to be done pre-17 minutes, basically, absolutely worth his purchase. I think Emilito's set up beautifully for a great late game.
And the Shield of Regrowth, going back to that, yeah, you mentioned it was Cherry that was piloting it for a while. I think we saw him in the days of old. It was the old Tears and Hercules that used to pick this up too when it was in vogue. Well, this is about movement speed yet again.
Exactly, but it's also cheap. 300 health, 10% CDR.
The
HP5 and MP5 are there, but you don't really feel them that much, I don't think. But certainly all about that health, CDR, and passive. And it really lines up well with Flaming Spear cooldown. Basically, every time you have Flaming Spear up, you're going to have that heal ready to go, and you're going to have that passive for Shield of Regrowth ready to go as well. So you can secure that escape like we just saw on the left-hand side.
Speaking of Spear, there's a Spear of Desolation on, Spear of the Magus online for BigManTingz, whereas Divine Ruin for Zyrhoes. This bit of a throwback to the old days. Is it worth getting that much anti-heal for this comp right now? Or I guess with iceicebaby's investment into Shield of Regrowth and
yeah, but he's still going to get the heal, right?
That's
I mean, it's the Bancrofts there. I mean, I think it's much more necessary for eUnited to be getting anti-heal than it is for the Pittsburgh Knights. You're much more concerned about the healing from EmilZy's Terra than you are about anything else on eUnited. But this is a European player. They really have an affinity for Divine Ruin, it seems, in the mid lane, and it's a cheap pen option that has decent power and ends up affecting their healing a bit. I don't mind it here.
eUnited decided to group up on this left-hand side now. Walkerage around the Gold Furies. Emilito was trying to get some free time on that Tier 1 tower. Chipped it down below half health now to about 25%. But as soon as Pittsburgh Knights show up, it slows down for now. Benji on the right-hand side still pressuring away, trying to answer the Tier 1 tower that he's lost in this solo lane. But his build is definitely interesting to me with the Nemean Lion being picked up.
Yeah, I just really going to try and de-incentivize Vote from hitting him. Yeah, this is all about diving Vote now for this build. And this is what Benji's made a living off of for a long time, which is making hunters really wish they weren't playing against him. And that's what this build is designed to do. Next is probably going to be an Oni Hunter's Garb. I think that's the right idea.
Gold Fury started by Pittsburgh Knights. Zyrhoes used as the lurk to try and get in range of Emilito. Hops out straight in Emilito's face. Gold Fury still being done, but eUnited will steal that. Was that Tingz?
I think it was. Tingz was able to get it, and Zyrhoes was all over Emil that whole time and got nothing for it. He has to ult away defensively, and Deathwalker may have to do the same.
Immediately, Pittsburgh Knights turn tail at the end, knowing Zyrhoes is out of the fray. Normally, when you lose a Gold Fury or a team takes it, you'll try and take a fight afterwards to answer that back, but Knights instead retreat.
Zyrhoes tried to get in front of Emilito and surprise him. He popped up right next to him and then just did no damage at all to him, basically. And that's another reason why this Warlock staff is great. Sure, Jorm does a lot more damage than you would expect with a power build. But he's still a Guardian. He still has limited damage output in comparison to most mages. And the Soul Reaver's a really intelligent pickup by Zyrhoes. He sees all the HP being built by Kalos and by Emilito. So he goes for that option. But he still has limited burst. He could only do X amount of damage over any given period of time. And so Emil knows that as long as I have that extra bit of HP, I don't really have to respect his damage that much.
Zyrhoes gets pressured again in the mid lane, knowing that his ultimate's on cooldown. Makes it a little bit trickier for Jorm to play as far up as he'd like to. So keep an eye on that as that continues. Right inside Deathwalker still farming away. Pyromancer is available at this point in time, but no team really looking at it just yet.
Pittsburgh Knights down a little bit, but overall in XP they're looking okay. Benji getting some extra waves in solo actually leapfrogs Deathwalker in the XP department, but BigManTingz had a pretty big lead on iceicebaby all game long. He's got both kills so far for the Pittsburgh Knights. Zyrhoes down just a smidge in the mid lane, and Vote up a little bit, and EmilZy actually up a pretty good amount as well. So XP certainly in Pittsburgh Knights' favor.
Zyrhoes lucky for BigManTingz, who dashes away from Deathwalker as Kalos rotates around. He'll get knocked up instead. But with iceicebaby showing around the corner, the prime target at this point in time is not the Ganesha. No real surprise to see people fall back.
The Magi's Cloak is interesting here for Ice. There's not a ton of CC from Pittsburgh Knights, but the CC they do have is pretty important to making it work. It's the knock-up from adapting, and having Magi's makes it much harder for him to all-in you. Vote is really going to be the one to strip away this Magi's Cloak with a whoop, but that's a good initiation option as well that would be stripped from them.
Pittsburgh Knights starting to move over towards the Fire Giant now, knowing eUnited are dancing around the Pyromancer. Engagement onto Deathwalker, who initiates onto Callus with the ultimate. Silence after the fact as he gets taken to the sky by iceicebaby. Former teammates going at it, both still alive for now, but adapting, more importantly, has taken down BigManTingz.
Deathwalker still juking for his life, and Zyrhoes is helping him out. Now big damage onto Emilito, and he's going to take care of ML. Now Benji doing what he can, but I don't think he's going to be able to turn this one. A beautiful fight for the Pittsburgh Knights. Everyone just looking at Deathwalker the entire time.
Yeah, full-on commit for him, and then it turned around to go in Pittsburgh Knights' favor. The one thing Adaption's always good at, it feels to me, is the counter initiation. It's one of the strongest plays in the game. iceicebaby now trying to defend this Fire Giant. It won't be in the enhanced one, but it's still going to be a big swing now for Pittsburgh Knights to get some gold in their back.
Ice, no way he gets out of this one. Adapting will find his 5th in a row. But the one thing that I always notice with Deathwalker's Osiris, he's played it a lot during his career. For me, I have never seen him initiate a fight without his passive fully stacked. And that is such a big part of playing Osiris that a lot of people don't really recognize, is getting that extra damage mitigation is incredibly impactful. And there, it's the only reason he lives. He's in passive right away, and then he ult would have gotten it anyways. But after the fact, he uses the tether while iceicebaby, right before iceicebaby ults him, and so he gets that damage mitigation and reduces the damage of iceicebaby the entire duration. He ends up surviving on a little bit of HP, and Emilito tries to turn on the gas to chase him down, but just not able to close the gap and get there in time. And the whole rest of the fight, Vote and Adapting are just kind of decimating the backline of eUnited.
Osiris always has that weird kit where you're like, wow, this is really good. So is this, so is this, so is this. And the tether is something that gets slept on so much, but like you said, the damage reduction from that, as well as the fact it will lead to a CC afterwards if you still hang around it, is so impactful. It can change the course of a fight. But more importantly, that was a classic Adapting.
Yes, absolutely. And 5-0 and 2, he's been a part of every kill so far for the Pittsburgh Knights. The lead was on to him, and he's been making it work nicely. Ice now, I mean, has not been able to do a whole lot on this Naja.
Teammate versus teammate. They've played a few times in rank together, and right now, Adapting was winning the trade initially against Emilito, but forced to ult was Emilito. Meanwhile, he's buying time for his team to take a tier 2 on the left-hand side.
ML get the tier 1 on the right, though, so a little bit of gold for him as BigManTingz eats a couple pot shots. The big thing really quick about Osiris as well, it just feels like you watch players like Deathwalker play it, and then you're like, oh man, I'm going to be unkillable. I loaded, I try and play it, and I feel like paper. And that's because
I agree.
There's so much variance with how, you know, if you're not doing everything perfectly, if you're not managing your passive, if you're not tethering the right targets, if you're not trying to find the right targets for your ultimate as well, you're going to feel really, really squishy. And then against you, sometimes Osiris feels nearly unkillable. And that's it really just it's a skill-based kit, I think.
I was going to say, are you trying to say a warrior has a skill cap?
A lot, yeah, I think so.
I've not really seen many that have that.
There's quite a few. I'd say more warriors have it than don't.
Like 2 I can think of, potentially?
I think Cullen has a pretty good skill cap.
That's fair.
You got to manage the rage.
I wasn't thinking that. Well, that's 3 now. Because the other one that came to my head was, no, it's gone. It was that important. King Arthur, I was going to say, but he's been strong anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, and if he was normalized in terms of, like, you know, the point of balance that everybody seems to want, I think he's definitely got a higher skill cap to his name.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean...
And Horus, too, now.
Horus, I think, can have it.
God, he's going to change
Look,
the SPL map.
I'm not saying that...
Predicting it now.
I can't wait, man. Someone is going to get wombo combo.
Oh, man.
And it's going to feel really good.
And that is the one benefit of patch notes for me, where I get to look at the new god and go, what craziness could this do? And when Giannis first came out, the first thing I thought of was like, Ares ult to pull them through the wall with the portal. Yeah, let's make the whole team.
Took how many years for her rival to do it?
It took a while, but I was still waiting patiently for it to happen.
That was so worth it.
Big siege from Pittsburgh Knights, though. Still got a little bit of time left with this Fire Giant. Probably about 30 seconds to a minute, I'd say, right about now. And trying to siege up the right-hand side, but none of the other lanes are pushing here. So it's going to be tricky to take on a straight 5-on-5 at the Phoenix.
Nice double stun from emilZy. Neither Ice nor BigManTingz has done a whole lot of damage so far this game. Take a look at the player damage on the left side. It's pretty low.
Jorm going to use the ultimate here as Zyrhoes looks towards Emilito, jukes to the left. At the same time, as the damage onto the Phoenix is pretty good. All this distraction from Pittsburgh Knights has come up big, but Vote does get hit by a nice ult from iceicebaby. Aegis after the fact avoids some damage from BigManTingz, and he takes to the sky to stay safe. But still, eUnited push on.
Great jump in for BigManTingz. Zyrhoes under siege from Benji, but adapting now, looking to turn the fight on the top side. Some healing coming in from EmilZy as Big Man is going to go down to adapting.
Your sustain is really helping out Pittsburgh Knights quite a bit here. Callus silencing adapting as the damage after the fight from Ice and Emilito is pretty good. EmilZy and Deathwalker frontline to the best of their ability as Benji will at least get the shutdown, and the chase out of the base is on. There's no way of an end here for Knights, but all they can do is turn and hope that they don't lose any more plays.
Deathwalker is going to be in some trouble, though. Benji with a nice slow blink in from Ice as well, but Emil does need to be careful. Yeah, there's beads used, and he's still going to get stunned.
EmilZy's with him too, now looking to try and CC chain Emilito into place to get Deathwalker the kill, and EmilZy will take it away from him. But more importantly, the carry being down now for another 50+ seconds.
And he lost his purification beads at the same time. I mean, that one hurts for Emilito for sure. Gets baited in a bit by the rest of his team. And that fight goes pretty well as Deathwalker just got body blocked a bit by his teammate. That fight goes pretty well, I'd say, for both sides. Both sides probably coming away from that saying, okay, well, wasn't perfect, but we got something. We only lost one Phoenix.
Kind of shows you that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, damage very, very close. But again, golden XP still in the Pittsburgh Knights' favor. XP not important anymore as everyone's level 20, but gold still fairly important. And it's just so hard to take a fight when you know you can't step up because Jorm is ulting, is going to knock you up. BigManTingz in particular can't step up, and that's a hard spot to be in as a mage.
Looking at Benji's build as well, Witchblade, Toxic Blade too, so auto attack focus from him. I understand the fact that he's going for this sort of route with the fact that he's trying to buff his carries and auto attack damage for Emilito, with the fact of the Kusari as well, but very much focused on what Deathwalker and Adaption are bringing him.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. The Toxic Blade seems a bit greedy to me, but it might end up working, but look at how squishy he is.
Benji just got whooped, forced to Eagles Rally after the fact, after getting dashed away, and he's chipped down to half health. Has teleport available, however, and he may not fall back to base just yet as Pyromancer is pulled by the Knights. The next Fire Giant is an enhanced one, and we know how much the players have been talking about how difficult and tricky this can be.
Pittsburgh Knights in particular have had a bit of trouble with it so far, so we'll see how they can confirm. They don't have great objective confirm here with the Jorm as their main mid lane.
Well, remember, they lost to Gold Fury a little bit earlier on. Pittsburgh Knights to eUnited on the counter engage, so no surprise to see the Knights drop the Fire Giant. Look to take the fight instead. EmilZy forced to ult defensively there. A little bit worried about the all-in. And talking about defensive ults, Emilito has been forced to ult by Deathwalker alone.
But Deathwalker still not giving up this chase. Kalas is trying to block everybody off, and he'll do that, but you can't block this Jorm ult.
Here he goes to the backline, on to Callus. The next shot could be good. It's back towards Benji. BigManTingz over the wall, tries to use the ult to dissuade the aggression, but the damage was done. The front line of Benji's dead, as Adapting does find Emilito in the back of the fight. He's getting low, but he's still got support.
He's got that Bloodforge shield. Perfect blink from iceicebaby, gets him away from that eruption. Zyrhoes going to slow him down a little bit. Adapting doesn't have his blink, I don't think. As Deathwalker still trying to 2v1.
And he's going to force BigManTingz away. That leaves Callus isolated and alone. EmilZy's hanging around, using his abilities to support, or maybe just bait people around. But more importantly, 3 kills the way of the Pittsburgh Knight in an extended fight that was started by them.
Deathwalker just unkillable, man. I mean, normally I would say that he has a hard time against Chronos because Osiris damage is slow. It takes a long time. You basically just keep on someone and they can never get away from you. And usually Chronos is very good at that because you just don't have the burst damage against him. But also it means that he rewinds and your damage is still there. You're not, you know, using everything you have in one big burst and then losing it all at the same time. You end up chasing him down again and adapting. I mean, the perfect bait and switch tactics to focus out Emilito. And BigManTingz positioning again in the lane is isolated, so he can't step up and swing around that rock coming towards blue buff in order to affect the fight. If he wants to, he might have to come all the way around and go by speed buff, but by that time the fight might be over. Big Man's decision to jump out there in that direction I think is a fine one because it's risky for him to try and group up with ML, but it also ends up meaning that he can't impact the fight easily.
Well, I will say, Pittsburgh Knights came into this game in game 1 and they pressured the solo lane consistently. A lot of pressure from Adapting over there, and him and Deathwalker have been the controlling features of this game so far, and made sure that the carries of eUnited haven't really been able to get involved when they want to.
Absolutely. I mean, those two have really controlled every single team fight so far. Vote's been there to deal the damage. Zyrhoes has assisted those dives pretty nicely with that ultimate and being able to survive simultaneously as he's getting out with it, but overall, it's really just been the Deathwalker and Adapting show so far.
13-3 then on the scorecard. It's a best of 5 as always with every SPL game this year. So the one thing that's always on my mind is what's going to happen in game 2, because you already start thinking about that at that point when you see the Phoenix down and the scoreline, the goal difference. You're like, okay, well, it is still SMITE, however. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's still a chance of a good defense at the Phoenixes.
Absolutely. You have still an option if you're eUnited. And they've got plenty of damage in the late game. In fact, they have so much that iceicebaby feels confident going for a Lono's mask. He's only got Lono's 2, so he's still going to deal relevant damage at this point. But this Naja has really been shut down in the damage department, so he's just going to feed into that a bit and go with the tanky route.
Bit of an interesting choice here by the Knights as well. They're going to weaken Phoenix on the right-hand side, but they're attacking the left. It makes it very tricky to do a bit of split push, potentially. Well, that was an Oni Fury wave, was it not? A little bit earlier ago?
Believe so.
Yeah.
So they've got, yeah, it is an Oni wave.
Pushing up,
so
that's where the
pushing.
ping's on the right-hand
Yep.
side. Yeah, okay. So this is actually better than I thought from Knights, because at first I'm like, why are you on this side when you could be in the mid and allowing a split push opportunity for a teammate to get that weakened Phoenix and still have time to rotate to the main fight?
I still wouldn't. I think I would have liked someone to push up mid and right one more wave so that they don't have to stick around quite as long here, but here's the initiation.
emilZy blinks in at the same time. Jormungandr pops that ultimate and forces BigManTingz away. Nice and ult from Ganesha there to slow down the aggression of the Pinks, but Vote has already taken out one of the carries in iceicebaby. Still Benji though, the Eagles rally looking for Vote, but Vote takes to the sky. Gets some good damage off into emilitoooooo, but not enough to force the rewind just yet.
A lot of ultimates used though, 4 out of 5 for the Pittsburgh Knights. They will get this Phoenix, and right side Phoenix should be pretty soon to follow. Just a matter of if they'll be able to get mid Phoenix as well.
Definitely feels like an established team versus one still working on things. Definitely,
Yes.
doesn't it? You can see, like, even though emilitoooooo wasn't really a big impact in this game, he's made waves to an extent. But you can see they're just not all on the same pace here at United.
Mid Phoenix down below a quarter, will still be up for a sliver of HP because they're looking for the players now. They turn their attention back towards the objective. And the right side Phoenix still standing. I imagine they can just waltz in and take this. Adapting's a bit weak, but
he'll be fine. And
he
has
can life
Fire
steal a
Giant
bit.
too,
Yeah.
and Pele. It's the dream situation. Didn't even have to build too much lifesteal either. Although, when I say that, I do see he's got Bloodforge picked up there too.
yeah, he built that fairly early on, just really looking to keep the fights going in their favor. He actually sold his boots already for a stone-cutting sword, so he's got plenty of power in the build.
Well, it tells me Benji's a little bit concerned about damage coming out from this team because he's gone for a chin size as well. Zyrhoes forced to use the beads away from the Ganesha Dharmic Pillars, but Deathwalker hits a 4-man ultimate. emilZy's along with him for the ride too. Into the Phoenix range we go. Blinking from adapting towards BigManTingz that gets out the beads. Meanwhile, Jormungandr ults as well with some good damage onto BigManTingz, and Tings will fall down to that ultimate from Zyrhoes.
Emil still doing what he can, but he doesn't get the rewind off. Zyrhoes on the mid lane worm gets himself the double kill, as now it should be pretty easy for them to just keep walking right into the
They
base.
should be able to do it for now as Callus will fall down to Vote and onto iceicebaby who just respawned. He won't be alive much longer. Benji with his chins will land that Scourge to make sure he gets at least another kill. And Knights won't
They can't.
end. They're too low. Minion wave coming on the left though, but no enhanced Fire Giant. Will they fall back? It looks like they want to try and end still.
I mean, Zyrhoes has damaged. He's got Rod of Tahuti on his Jormungandr. Maybe they can. They've got a full fire wave, and
Should be
Benji
able
can't
to.
really clear near their Kanice.
There's 20 seconds left. Benji tanking up the front of the storm at the moment, but emilZy will get credit for the kill. And into the throne room they go. The Titan will slowly fall down. And I say slowly because that's exactly how it's going.
They got it eventually, though. An impressive performance from the right side of the Pittsburgh Knights map, though. I mean, Deathwalker, that fight looks like it's starting to back it up a little bit, and he goes, hey, there's 4 people in a tiny little area, and I can hit all of them with my ultimate. Does it beautifully. That turns the fight back around, and it takes Pittsburgh Knights a bit to be like, okay, we're fighting again. I mean, we kind of wanted to back up here. That initiation was just too good to pass up.
That was the first time I've really felt Deathwalker is back.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a minute since I've said Deathwalker's name in a more than positive way. You know, normally he plays to a standard you expect. That was above for me.
Yeah, I think he's had 1, maybe 2 games so far this year where you're like, okay, this is the
Reminds me.
as advertised sort of moment for Deathwalker. This was also it. I mean, he was literally invincible, it felt like, in these fights. He didn't die a single time, and with how aggressively he was positioned simultaneously, that's very impressive.
Zyrhoes on your screen looking calm and collected for the time being. No real surprise after 1 game down against eUnited and a good little victory under the belt. What do eUnited need to correct, though?
Yeah, I think that the Naja pick needs to be changed, or it needs to be picked into a different style of composition. That composition, I mean, you can't ult the mid laner. That's really, really difficult for a Naja, I think. Ice just fell behind a little bit too early and never really caught up in farm. I think the idea of getting pressure on the solo side and stripping that farm away from him worked out really, really nicely. So now maybe I'm considering something a little bit more aggressive in the jungle that can contest on those buffs. I mean, Naja's one of the best at it, but clearly something needs to change there. Ice just wasn't effective.
Well, we'll see what eUnited can correct for game 2 and if Knights continue on. But first of all, we'll go to the death to break down that first set.
Well, it's not just a fluke. The Jormungandr mid returns and wins another game. You know, we saw this a couple of weeks ago when we were watching Zyrhoes with the Jorm mid, and there was is it real, is it not? And if you didn't watch that set, he won one game and didn't really do anything in the other game. Here he's saying, all right, not a joke. This is real, not troll. And, I mean, number 2 on the player damage. I liked what happened out of the Jorm mid.
Jorm hits pretty hard if you prioritize him for that damage-based type build like what we saw Zyrhoes going for in the mid lane. But I think I was really impressed by what Adapting and Deathwalker were able to accomplish throughout this match, because it felt like those two were doing such an excellent job at playing off of the other, whether it was Deathwalker looking to try and corral everybody or Adapting looking for a very aggressive flanking position. Either way, one of them was posing the threat that kind of forced eUnited to want to try and group up. But if you group up and everybody gets smacked by the Lord of the Afterlife, I mean, what more can you really do other than try to bail out? And oftentimes that escape route simply wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big deal as well. Watching, so Zyrhoes was able to kind of do whatever he wanted, and because he's not playing this mage that needs somebody to peel for him, Adapting and Deathwalker can go off in a different spot on the team fight and kind of do whatever they needed to do.
It was just, I think, too problematic for iceicebaby to really get anything going, because when the mid laner is automatically not an option just because of a God's passive, that was just, I think, smart drafting from Zyrhoes. Not only is he getting a pick that he wants, but he's also, you know, having the ability to not have to worry about this Naja in the slightest, and he can still rip straight into the back line, unable to be touched.
Great stuff there. You saw this essentially is the game-winning play. The 4-man ultimate coming out from the solo laner, and then the follow-up damage coming out from the mid laner. Deathwalker and Zyrhoes really combined to walk it in.
What's even crazier to say, though, is that probably was not a satisfying win for the Pittsburgh Knights.
I feel that.
I think that they felt very uncomfortable as those minutes kept ticking upwards and upwards, because those fights just kept getting closer and closer. And at one point, I even thought that eUnited were going to have a solid chance to try and turn things around. That is until Deathwalker says, I'm not losing this first game.
Pretty much, yeah. You look at a Raijin, you look at a Chronos across the lane, you go, wow, that's a late game for sure. But like you said, Deathwalker kind of willing it onto the winner's side there for Pittsburgh Knights, and a great look for them as they start the series up 1-0 versus eUnited. You know, Naja, I think, is almost an evergreen selection these days, except for against the Jorm mid. Even when Jorm is playing solo or support, you're like, well, I'm not really like trying to kill that tanky target anyway, you know, here, but you need that mid lane to be an option. So you'll hear me definitely preaching the Church of Naja pretty often on this desk, but I think playing it into Zyrhoes as mid lane Jormungandr is a little bit too much, and I got to look someplace else for Ice to do well.
That was just a smart, responsive drafting opportunity for Zyrhoes, taking that Jormungandr in the second and third picks period for Pittsburgh Knights. Bellona and Naja were the initial response picks that eUnited had to that first pick of Freya from Pittsburgh Knights. I think that they were really gung-ho when trying to establish that solo side pressure, like Aggro was mentioning, but it just kind of faltered as the match continued to develop because of the fact that they weren't really getting that steep of punishment that they wanted. Or maintaining it.
One down, couple to go.